Hello there, I'm Tom Lippincott, and Modern Jazz Noise is this video series where we talk about effects pedals and tone and sound in general and how it applies to kind of a modern jazz guitar setting. Something that probably isn't talked about as much as I'd like to see on YouTube videos. Even there's a gazillion videos out there talking about reviewing effects pedals and using them and so forth. I don't find there to be all that many out there that deal with specifically the idea of using them for kind of a modern jazz setting. So that's kind of what this is attempting to talk about. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about actually my current and soon to be ex pedalboard. I have a Pedal Train Pro, one of the big huge size pedal boards, and it's worked great for me for many years, but I've definitely been feeling the need to downsize a little bit with as little as possible compromise in sound. So before I dismantle this pedal board, I'm all set to put together the smaller board. I'm going to just give kind of a brief overview of my current pedal board, so for comparison's sake, once I put the new one together. So without further ado, let's take a look at my current pedal board setup. So here we are with my pedal board. I'll just take you on a brief tour. The first thing that you'll see as the guitar is plugged into is the Zvex Fuzz Factory, which is right here. And some of you may already be familiar with that pedal. I'm not going to do too much demonstrating of these different pedals now, because this is mostly just this last hurrah of the old board, and most of these pedals are going on the new one. So I'll save that second video for a lot of the demonstration things. So, I'm going into the fuzz first, and then from there I'm going into the various, from there I'm going into the compressor pedal, which is the Exotic SP. Now, until recently, I had a Wampler Ego compressor on here, and I got rid of that one simply to save space on the new board. The Exotic one has been great. I haven't really noticed many significant differences between the two pedals. I like the fact that both of them have the mix control. That's something that's very important to me. So that one's been doing fine. Up until recently, I had also the Source Audio EQ pedal on here. That's why it's looking a little bit empty also. And in the, I don't know how many years I've been using this pedal board, I pretty much never even kicked that pedal on, and I finally realized it was pretty unnecessary, so I've taken it off the board. Next, I go into a couple of gain pedals. My prized possession here is my Hermida Zen Drive, this pedal right here, which is one of the original Zen drives that Alphonse Hermida made. I bought it from him directly in Miami, and I've had many different overdrive pedals over the years that I've tried, and I still just keep coming back to this one. It's just got something special and magical about it, in particular at the way it interacts with my guitar, my 8-string, that I just can't quite get from any other pedal. Maybe what I will do is I'll give you a little sample of the sound that I usually use with the pedal. I've got the compressor, the Zen Drive, and the EP booster on. Now I'm going directly into the computer, and I'm using a plug-in amp. So it's not exactly the same sound that I would actually get through a real amp. But that's basically an approximation of the tone that I get with that pedal. So I am using the compressor in front of it, and I'm also using this EP booster, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first, I'm going to also talk about the other drive pedal that I have, this blues mood. I'm bringing the compressor back on. So you can hear there's just a tiny little hint of drive. And it's not enough to really obscure even pretty complex chords. Now right now I'm also using the piezo pickup mixed in on my 8th string, and that's why it's got such a bright kind of sound. When I use this blues mood pedal, I usually use it with this setting. And very often I'm using that in conjunction with an acoustic guitar sound. Just mixes in a little bit of grittiness and personality to the acoustic sound that I get through the piezo, through kind of an acoustic amp. So anyway, there's that one. I'm generally not a fan of running 2 overdrive pedals together. I know a lot of people do that, but I find that with the 2 pedals together, that attack just kind of fuzzes out a little bit, and I don't like that sound. So, and just about every time I've tried using, 2 overdrive pedals in conjunction, it has that kind of vibe to it. So I don't really ever use 2 drive pedals together. Let's see, and then we have the EP booster. Now, anybody that's not familiar with this pedal, it's primarily a booster pedal, but you'll notice that I've actually got the volume turned all the way to the lowest setting, but it also has a little, very subtle effect on the EQ. There's with it, here's without it. It's a very subtle effect, but I kind of like what it adds if I'm going for either with my overdrive pedals on or more of a bright kind of pop influence sound as opposed to a jazz tone, like more of a traditional jazz tone, which if I'm using a jazz tone, I'll pretty much turn all those pedals off, bring my tone control down. So a much warmer, brighter, and kind of less affected sound. Okay, so then next in the chain is my volume pedal, which is this Dunlop mini volume pedal. Used to have a Ernie Ball volume pedal in that space, which is why it looks like there's a little extra room on the sides, but it also provides room for my foot. And it's been a great pedal. I've had it on there for, I don't know, maybe like a year now, and really love that pedal. The feel of it for volume swells is really smooth, and it's great. And then that of course goes out into my Korg tuner here, which is the old-fashioned kind with an actual meter on it. Like they're showing it's flat, and then of course both of the arrows light up when it gets in tune. And I always liked the fact that it had a physical needle on it. There was something about that just always appealed to me. However, recently I've kind of jumped on the digital bandwagon. I just bought one of the TC Electronic Polytunes. Actually, I have it right here. This, which I've actually had this on the board. I just put the Korg back on here for this video, just to make it as authentic as possible to my old board. But I've been really liking the Polytune. It's nice to be able to, hit 6 strings at once. Of course, with 8 strings, I can't tune 8 strings at once, but I can tune the top 6 or the bottom 6, or at least check them and see if they're in tune quickly. And it's a pretty accurate tuner, seems to be at least. So I'm pretty sold on it. And of course, as you can see, it's smaller than the Korg is. So I'm probably going to be getting rid of the Korg tuner, I'm sure. So that's the sort of the drive and tone shaping parts of the pedal chain, although I forgot about the tremolo pedal, the old Love pedal tremolo that I've had for quite some time. And I don't use it a lot, but it could be nice for textural things. Again, if I'm going for a little bit more of a pop, you know, kind of derived sound, not so much for straight ahead jazz. All right, and then we start to get into the digital pedals. So the big one next would be the Hog, or the Hog 2, I guess it is. And this one is a really deep pedal. I'm probably going to devote a specific video just to talking about this one, so I'm only going to just, you know, take you through the real basics. But you can see at the bottom corner of the pedal board here, there's this remote controller for the Hog, which allows me to have presets. The preset that I've got on here right now is basically a freeze function, which I've got this expression pedal here. That kind of thing. But that's only just the tip of the iceberg of what this pedal does. But I love that function in particular, as opposed to an actual freeze pedal that has the click switch. This one's a nice smooth, and I can actually use the volume pedal once the chord is frozen to adjust the volume. So if I play something, it's like, oh wait, that's a little too loud because I want to play over it, I can just bring the volume back. And for a while I had the Super Ego, which is kind of a fancy version of their freeze pedal, and you couldn't do that with that pedal, and it had the click thing too. So both of those things kind of soured me on that pedal pretty quickly. Just really briefly, a couple of other presets. This is an octave below. This one runs you through the processor with no dry signal. So you can hear there's a softer attack, and it's somewhat of maybe a little bit of an artificial sound, but I really like it. It sounds kind of horn-like to me. And it's also got the added benefit of you can adjust the octave. So I can use this, I've got it set up for this pedal to change the pitch up to an octave. And this one pairs really nicely with, I'll put a little more ambient sound, pairs really nicely with the Fuzz Factory. And then if I really want to get intense, I can bring the pitch up an octave. Once you get in the real upper stratosphere, the pitch starts to get really quiet. If I'm like building an intensity in a solo, sometimes I'll even use the pitch shift pedal to kind of ramping up of tension kind of a thing. All right. Now, back down to planet Earth. next thing that I'm going to talk about here, and I'll spend a little longer on this one because this is one of the pedals that's going to be off the board soon, is the Eventide Time Factor. Now, I'm not getting rid of it because there's anything about it I don't like, except for one small but very significant aspect of it, which is its size. As you can see, it's a real space hog. Not as big as the Hog, and about the same size as a couple of the other pedals, but in trying to figure out a way to downsize the pedal board, there were a few pedals that I just decided I could not live without. One was the Hog 2, another one was the Big Sky here, and then the other one was the Hologram Microcosm, which I'll get to those in a minute. But this one, I love this delay pedal. It's been amazing. I've, had nothing but good luck with it. However, in order to make full use of all the properties of it, I needed to get this extra foot switch from this little company called This One's Mine. I think it's just a one-man operation, and they basically make this switch that you can use the other functions that these pedals can be programmed, or these switches can be programmed for. So basically I have access to all of the, there's 6 different functions, and instead of having to go through all this rigmarole to get to the other functions of these 3 switches, I can have immediate access to them with this. But of course it sacrifices, having to take up that much space on the pedal board. And then some of you may be wondering what the heck this pedal here is. This is a controller or an expression pedal that's set up to work with the Eventide Time Factor. So for like right now, this is just this kind of delay setting that I use most of the time, and I can use the expression pedal to bring the level of the there, it's more in the background. And then if I turn it all the way down, it's not off, even though it said 0, but I've got it set to where there's still a little tiny bit of delay. If I turn the reverb up, you can still hear it just barely in the background. I like having, even if I'm playing like a straight ahead jazz kind of tune, I like having a little tiny hint of that delay. Not enough to, it's almost like you feel it rather than hear it. Okay. And then a few of the other kind of cool settings on this pedal. Let's see. Actually, that's not one of the ones that I usually use. Here's a backwards guitar. You can hear me, through the microphone playing the guitar forward, and then it's only wet signal coming through. So that's kind of a cool effect. Not, a lot of different delay pedals will do that. A couple of other just kind of typical delay sounds. This one's set up to be kind of like a tape delay. And then this one, no, I'm sorry, this is the one that's set up to be like a tape delay. I guess this one's just like more like a digital delay with modulation. And then this one is more like a tape delay. And I never really used this one that much, and I finally ended up just setting it up to be like a really long delay time. And I can control it. For more kind of crazy sounds. That's something I've been having a little bit of fun with recently. This is using the reverse delay with feedback on to give you almost like a ring modulator kind of sound. Kind of cool for rhythmic things. And then I also have a looper in here. And this also has the expression pedal hooked up to change the speed. That's kind of cool. Or if I record something really down really low in pitch. So that's kind of fun. But it doesn't have a whole lot of flexibility otherwise. You can't do anything backwards, which is something I love to do with a loop pedal. And I still have to press that momentary switch to get in and out of the looper. What else have I got on here? The guitars in space, which is a kind of a preset. I've used that a few times in recording sessions to get like a real spacey kind of ambient guitar sound. And it's really nice in stereo, as you can kind of hear. The different, got the dotted eighth delays on one side and then the quarter notes on the other side, so they kind of interact with each other rhythmically. And then on top of that, you've got that filter. That's one sound from this delay that I don't think I'm going to be able to get from any other pedal, so that's one that I'm kind of sorry to see go. This is just like a slapback. If I'm going for like a, you know, Ventures or Shadows kind of a vibe. Then I've got a reverse echo. I don't really find myself using this one that much. It's cool in concept, but I guess on a gig it's just so far in the background that you can't really even tell that it's a backwards delay. It'd have to be like for a solo intro or something every once in a while. And then here's my chorus sound, which generally I'm not a fan of chorus. I kind of got burnt out on it in the 1980s when it was big and I was using it a lot, and after a while it just gets too much. That sameness of the modulation, it just sounds mechanical and kind of cheesy to my ear. And something that I kind of learned from listening to Bill Frisell is you can use just regular echo and delay and then bend the pitch of your notes a little bit. And that creates a chorus effect too, but it's a lot more organic and less mechanical sounding. Not to mention the fact that with these fancy new units, the reverb has modulation on the reverb itself too. So you don't have to have the original, you know, basic sound kind of mucked up with that chorus sound, but you still get the chorus effect. Also, I think this delay sound, yeah, you can hear it's set to waver the pitch a little bit, and then when that mixes with the dry signal, it creates that little bit of chorus. But to me, it's a much more organic thing than an actual chorus pedal. Next we have the Big Sky Reverb, which again I consider really essential. I love this pedal. This, you can see that, I don't know if you can read that small, but this preset is called LXP1, which I did as close as I could come of doing a reproduction of my Lexicon LXP1 half rack unit, which is kind of my favorite reverb for jazz, I guess I would say. And I kind of A-B'd the two and tweaked this preset until I got it to be pretty close to the way the LXP1 sounds. One of the key features to me is that pre-delay. There's that little amount of space between when I hit the note and when you hear the reverb start. That's one of the things that the lexicon has. And a pedal that I had for a long time before this was actually the Eventide Space, which I thought was going to be this amazing earth-shattering sounding reverb. And for the real crazy psychedelic reverb effects, it was great. But for just a basic hall reverb, which is what I love, like the LXP1, in order to use the pre-delay would be this hard thing. You know, there'd be silence, and then the reverb would come on suddenly. Whereas with the LXP1, the reverb fades in. And this one does that. It kind of fades the reverb in. It's a softer. But the Space, it was almost like an echo. You know, there'd be silence, and then all of a sudden, boom, you'd hear the thing kick in at full volume. Just didn't like the way that sounded at all. And it honestly wasn't that crazy about the reverb sound itself that the Space had for just everyday reverbs. Maybe that's just me, because you know, I know Eventide is renowned for that stuff, and I love the time factor. Anyway, so this is my sort of meat and potatoes go-to reverb. I've also got a less extreme version, just less reverb in the mix. If I'm playing an up-tempo jazz tune, or if I'm just kind of practicing every day, I'll use more of this kind of sound. You can also hear a little bit of the delay more this way. But anyway, back to the regular one. And then I have a bigger version for more ballady kind of things. I was using this when I was demonstrating the Hog and the Fuzz Factory earlier. Again, really just beautiful, expansive reverb sound. It uses their Bloom algorithm. And then I have the same sound, but with way more higher in the mix. And I'll sometimes use this at the end of a tune to get a really big, dramatic ending or something. So it's kind of cool. As deep as this Big Sky is, and as much, you know, possibilities as it has, honestly, I've really, for the most part, only used those three sounds in the real world when I'm, you know, playing it on gigs. That there's so much other stuff it can do, but I just love those sounds so much that, you know, I feel like that's enough. I don't really need much more. So this green pedal right here, Sweet 16 digital delay made by a guy in Uruguay. The name of the company is Manico Looper. And this is basically a reproduction of the old Electro-Harmonic 16-second delay from the early 80s. And I love the pedal. However, it's only mono, and most of my time bass units I run in stereo, and because a lot of the times I like to use 2 amps and have that nice stereo spread. I asked him actually about making a stereo version, and he said it would just be too complicated to do. So I've got it kind of before these 3 pedals, which are all stereo in the chain, running out mono into the time factor. So that's one kind of limitation of it. And right now, this switch, the infinite switch, is broken. So if I put something into the delay, like I will here, so now you're hearing, you know, what I just played kind of looped back. It's set for a pretty long delay time, so, but I'm playing it back a lot faster. That's one of the cool things about this pedal, is you can manipulate the speed, and you can also play it backwards with this switch. And notice that the fidelity is pretty bad, or low, I should say. But that's how he purposely did it that way, to mimic the lo-fi sound of the early technology and digital stuff. And then it's also got this modulation section, which can change, you know, and I kind of use it for real extreme kind of sounds like that. But so now it's set to where it's just started the playback of what I just played backwards. I just changed the pitch to so I can do some really fun stuff with it. What the infinite, turning off the infinite switch allows you to overdub stuff on top of what's going on. And so that's what I can't do while this switch doesn't work. But you can imagine you can get all kinds of sonic mayhem with that pedal. It's unfortunately going off of the new board. I find that it's not crucial enough for me to need to keep it on there. And then lastly, I have the Hologram microcosm. It's one of my most recent acquisitions, and I just love this pedal to death. It's amazing. So, and what does it do? Well, first of all, it can act as a looper. And I'm free to change the pitch, overdub on top. Put it in reverse. I can, let's say, I want to bring things down really slow and so I got 3 different layers of pitches going on now. Creates all kinds of crazy mayhem. But that's not even the main feature of this pedal. The main feature is this granular delay stuff that it does. And again, I'm not going to spend a whole long time on this because I'm going to probably devote a whole video to this pedal. However, just a little sample of some of the madness that this pedal can produce. It can somewhat be unpredictable sometimes, but I love that for certain things. If I'm, in a creative kind of situation where I'm dealing with just sound kind of stuff. So that's basically, in a nutshell, this pedal board, the things that I typically use it for and have been using it for. And I use it on gigs from everything from straight ahead jazz, playing standards where I'm probably not using too many of the pedals, maybe just the reverb and delay alone, to more creative kind of gigs where I'm sound sculpting, and I also do a lot of things where I'm playing maybe more contemporary kinds of tunes, compared to standards, like All the Things You Are, or whatever, like a Beatles tune or a Neil Young tune or a David Bowie tune or something like that. And then it seems much more appropriate to use a lot of these more extreme effects and kind of play around with the textures and get ambient sounds. So I just have always been in love with those kind of psychedelic ambient sounds like the Beatles used on the recordings and Jimi Hendrix. And having these pedals allows me to do that. So on my next video, then I'll get into demonstrating some of the new stuff. And I'm excited to debut the pedal that's going to replace the Eventide Time Factor. I found a much smaller pedal that does a lot of the same things, maybe a couple of compromises here and there, but for the most part I don't think it'll be too much of a compromise. So there's the old adage of if it works, don't mess with it, and the pedal board that I currently have certainly has been working great for me, so I'm a little bit nervous about putting the new one together, but thankfully not too many things are going to be changing. We'll be outlining a few of the things that are going to change in the next video. But hopefully this has been informative for some people, and I hope if you like what you see, you'll look for the next episode, and don't forget to... So